Will Tom Brady and Bill Belichick stop making history? Bill Belichick reached his 250th victory in his tenure as the Patriots' head coach, while Tom Brady reached the 1,000-yard mark in rushing as the Patriots tumbled over the Vikings in a 24-10 victory. Mike McCarthy, after 12-plus years and a Super Bowl win in 2010 with the Green Bay Packers, has just been fired by the team. With so many questions looming around, was this the right move? In the meantime, we'll have to find all that out. Nevertheless, welcome back to the Halftime Show. I'm Josh Lynch, your host as always for this show, followed by my co-host and Allie DiNatale and our newest member to the team, Laik Green. Now, for those of you who don't know, Laik was a guest on this show for the last segment we did, and he did a phenomenal job. He's now a part of the team, and we are thrilled to have him on set. How you feel, man?
Really, really happy. Really glad to be regular. Right. Looking forward to an awesome show.
So with that being said, guys, ready to roll?
Yes.
All right. Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs still had plenty of firepower on offense, even without star running back Kareem Hunt. Mahomes threw 4 touchdown passes Sunday to join Peyton Manning and Tom Brady as the only quarterbacks to reach the 40 touchdown mark through 12 games, sending the Chiefs to a 40-33 victory over the Oakland Raiders in the first game since releasing Hunt. Guys, what's the bigger story here? Is it Patrick Mahomes' production from yesterday or Kareem Hunt's absence?
Well, you know, I think Patrick Mahomes really stepped up.
Definitely.
I mean, of course, the Kareem Hunt story is huge, and it's a sideshow. The big part of this game was Patrick Mahomes. 23 for 38, 295 yards,
Crazy.
and 4 touchdowns. And Josh, this was his 7th game of the season that he threw for 4 or more touchdown passes.
Unbelievable. Now I'm hearing the MVP talks are starting to circle around. Mahomes back again. I don't know if you guys remember last week, the Chiefs kind of fell off. They lost to somebody, and MVP talks for Mahomes were out the picture. Considering Drew Brees, he had a huge game last week, so he was in the MVP, talks about, and Mahomes was left out. But now, seeing him play yesterday, you said 4 touchdowns. How many yards?
295.
Yeah, he's back on his game, and we've seen this from him more than once. So this is nothing new to us. Me personally, I got him winning MVP. To be honest, if Drew Brees is not playing at a high level like he has been in the past, I'm not saying Drew Brees is gonna fall off. It's Drew Brees, but I think Mahomes, he's got this in the bag. He's putting up crazy numbers. Like you said, 4 touchdowns. How many yards again?
295.
295 yards. I mean, he's leading this Chiefs team possibly to a Super Bowl. And I think they can go as long as he keeps pace for this offense. Chiefs have got this, guys. Allie, what you think?
Well, I think that after the whole story with Hunt, and it was kind of like a downfall for the team, kind of put a bad reputation maybe on them. And I think Mahomes' performance really just kind of threw that to the side a little bit. Still a big story, but at the same time, it was kind of like a little bit of redemption for the team.
It was.
Focus on something more positive than negative.
Definitely. And with Hunt being out, I don't know if you guys took notice, Travis Kelce, their star tight end, he was the main target in that game. Travis Kelce, he had about 12 receptions for 168 yards. This was like his best game yet of the season.
He was almost perfect, Josh.
He was almost perfect.
There was 1 incompletion out of his 13 targets.
He was 12 of 12, all catches. No, I'm sorry, 11 for 12. That one drop pass you talked about.
12 for 13.
12 for 13. But other than that, the guy he was phenomenal. And this is what Travis Kelce does. His production is amazing. When people step down, when somebody's injured, he steps up and he makes big plays like he did last night. 168 yards for a tight end. That's incredible. And he's going to need to continue to do that moving forward as Hunt is now being removed from the team. I think he's already removed from the team.
Yes, he was released immediately.
He was released immediately following that video. I'm sure you guys took notice of that.
Yeah.
In my opinion, he deserves being departed from that team. There's honestly no reason why anyone should do that. And then he lied to the team regarding that video, and that's what made him get kicked off the team. Laik, follow up on that.
Anytime there's violence committed by any player in the NFL, it's unacceptable.
It's assault.
the NFL was right to discipline for that, and unfortunately for him, it cost him his job. I mean, you're a part of a 10-2 team.
Right.
There's high hopes for you, and it was really unfortunate that he did what he did, but you can't argue with the sentence.
And what's interesting here is Kareem Hunt, he was the team's leading rusher, and he led the NFL in rushing last year as a rookie. So to see them be so quick and not hesitant as they kick him off the team, that tells me a lot. That really does tell me a lot. He was a big part of their game. I was actually shocked myself. I thought they would just suspend him, but they kicked him off immediately. And he even said it himself. He owns up to what he did. He understands why. He lied to the team about what happened. Then when the video was released on Friday, it was like, he was in the hot seat, dug himself into a hole. Nevertheless, like I said, Travis Kelce, they got some star running backs. Damian, I think Woody is his name. He's a backup. I'm not going to say he's going to step up and be prolific as Kareem Hunt, but he'll get the job done. I think he'll get the job done.
Josh, if you want to talk about rushing, we were talking about Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
He led the team in rushing as well. In 9 attempts, he had 52 yards, 5.8 yards per carry.
And
what can this man not do?
Right. People forget, not only does he have an arm, the dude can run. I mean, he's flat out an athlete. He can scramble out the pocket. I was watching the game yesterday. He was slinging passes. He was like eluding defensive ends, linebackers. He was doing it all. Guy's unstoppable. And he's so young. How old is he, like 25, 26?
Around that area. He's really the prime example of the modern quarterback. In the NFL in the past, quarterbacks used to sit in the pocket and throw the ball deep, and the game has changed. We're shifting from this stoic figure in the pocket, just throwing the ball down the field, and becoming
he's a super quarterback.
A multiple tool player. And the NFL teams are hungry for guys who can move. You look at the Giants and Eli Manning. He cannot move. A lot of the problems that the Giants had this year was because he could not move out of the pocket and he was not mobile.
Speaking of the Giants, Allie, that's your team. What do you think they're going to do with Eli Manning next season?
I know he wants to stay, and honestly, I feel like he probably still will, but I think that they should really try to go for a
Father Time is coming.
Yeah, they got to do something about it.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do with that guy, but I digress. The New England Patriots took care of business against the Minnesota Vikings on Sunday to keep pace with the best teams atop the AFC. Tom Brady completed 24 of 32 passes for 311 yards, as he now has 508 regular season touchdown passes in his career. With that being said, guys, the Patriots are 9-3. They've won 8 of 9 since starting the season 1-2. They had those 2 bad losses. Nevertheless, with Brady playing at the level we've seen him play before, how far do we see this Patriots team go into the playoffs this year if they get home field advantage?
Oh, New England's a perennial contender.
Every year.
And the 1-2 start or whatever it was this year, it reminded me a couple of years ago. The last time the Patriots started 1-2 and everybody was panicking and saying Tom Brady was done, they won the Super Bowl. So
that's just how they roll.
Moral of the story, you can never count out Bill Belichick
you can never
or
count
Tom
out.
Brady, regardless of what the record is.
They can lose 4 in a row, and they end up winning 5 in a row right after.
Exactly.
Win the Super Bowl. It's just how it is. And even when they're down by like 20 or more points in a playoff game, we saw that 2 years ago when they played the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think they were down 17-3, came back, won the game. Played the Eagles. They lost to my team, though.
Did they not?
Did they
beat
not?
Atlanta 20 when they were down 28-3?
They did. They did. A lot of people said, Matt Ryan choked, this, that, and the third, but you got to give credit to where it's due. The Patriots, they're phenomenal. This is just what they do. They capitalize on mistakes. They just find ways to win. And with a coach like Bill Belichick and a quarterback like Tom Brady, greatness is bound to happen with that team. Nevertheless, guys, they're going to get home field advantage. I'm looking at right here. They win one more game. I think they topped the Steelers, but with that being said, the Steelers, I hear, are out the playoffs as they lost to the Chargers. We're not going to get into that, but the Patriots have a clear-cut path. If they have home field advantage, I have them going to the Super Bowl without a doubt. Laik, Allie, what you guys think?
I think so. If they have home field advantage,
Yeah.
it should be no problem for them to be
No problem.
I think Tom Brady's record in Gillette is near impeccable. It's near perfect in the playoffs.
Exactly.
You don't go into Foxborough in January and win games.
You don't. And if you do win, it's by a few, not a lot. It's by a few. A blockbuster trade that gained momentum through the week has been completed as the Seattle Mariners have agreed to deal all-star closer Edwin Diaz and veteran second baseman Robinson Cano to the New York Mets, according to multiple reports. In return, the Mariners will receive veteran right fielder Jay Bruce and several other prospects. Laik, Allie, this is real interesting, but who do you guys think are the winners in this trade, and who does this affect more?
Well, I really feel like the trade is very balanced. Very balanced if you look at these points.
Right.
The Mets are looking to win now. Did the Mets give up a whole lot of prospects and basically degrade their system to the point where they don't have any young stars that will fill the gaps in a few years? Yes. But the Mets are not looking towards the future. The Mets are looking to win now.
Right.
And giving up Justin Dunn, who was their first-round pick in 2016. They also gave up the 6th overall pick last year, outfielder Jared Kelenic. And Anthony Swarzak was a solid reliever. They also gave him up, and then another throw-in. But they gave up a lot. But the Mets were in desperate need of a big bat. Robinson Cano, even though he missed 80 games last year for suspension for PEDs, he still hit 10 home runs and still batted 50 RBIs in the other 80. So he is the big bat that the Mets need.
Right.
If the Mets want to contend, Robinson Cano is definitely a huge piece to that lineup, and they need a guy who doesn't just hit for power, but can drive runs in other ways, and that's what he can do. He's a dynamic player.
That is what he can do.
And Edwin Diaz, come on, he's the prize of the deal. 24 years old. Yeah. He throws 100 miles an hour. He had 57 saves last year. He led the majors.
That's the better of the deal in terms of, ranking him and Cano next to each other. He's the better of the deal.
He's the steal because he's cheap, and he's controllable for at least the next 4 seasons. He goes to arbitration in 2020 and is an unrestricted free agent in 2022. Right. So, the Mets got rid of Jeurys Familia at the deadline last year. He went to Oakland, and now they needed the man to step up.
To Oakland, really?
He did. He went at the deadline last year.
Okay.
But, Edwin Diaz is just dynamic, and he's 24 and throwing 100 miles an hour.
So it's like a win-win for both teams, it seems like here, correct?
It's a win now for the Mets, and it's towards the future for Seattle.
Definitely. Allie, what you think?
I agree. I think it's a very good balanced trade. Seattle definitely needed the younger guys. They haven't been in their best for the past few years. So
I haven't heard about them in the mix.
Yeah, so they definitely needed these prospects. And I think also, the Mets do want to win now. I think getting Cano and Diaz is exactly what they need, because they did have veteran players, but they didn't really step up. The catching wasn't the best for them either.
It wasn't.
So I think that this is a good move for both teams.
And when's the last time the Mets have been relevant?
Well, they've been predicted to be competitive over the last few years.
Right.
But the last time they were really a relevant team in the playoffs was 2015 when they went to the World Series.
Right.
Yeah.
They made the playoffs the next year, and they lost in the wild card round. I think to San Francisco, right? Mm-hmm. There was a grand slam in the 9th inning off Familia. But
interesting.
We'll see.
We'll see what happens. The Packers didn't wait until the season was over or even until they were officially eliminated from the playoffs to make a coaching change. 3 hours after an embarrassing home loss to the Arizona Cardinals, the Packers fired coach Mike McCarthy. Laik, Allie, was this the right move? And if so, why did the team quit on a coach who had a lot of success in his years coaching this team, as well as taking them to the Super Bowl in 2010?
Well, I think the precedent the Packers were trying to set is that it's not about the past, it's about the future.
Right.
And Mike McCarthy, don't get me wrong, is a legendary coach.
He is.
He brought them to the Super Bowl in Super Bowl 45 in 2011, and they were the 6th seed that year. They were a wild card team, and they went all the way to the Super Bowl. But they're 4-7-1 this year. They were really not competitive last year, and Aaron Rodgers does not look so hot, and he doesn't have a lot of playmakers around him.
He doesn't.
Look, the guy has a street named after him outside of Lambeau Field.
He
does. You can't get any more
what
essential
do with
to a
that
franchise than that. And he's 10-8 in the playoffs, and he's 61% career win percentage.
Yes.
So the guy is, he's a proven coach.
To piggyback off of what you said, McCarthy, he finished with the record of 125 and 77. Now, I don't know about you guys, but he was a pretty solid coach for the Green Bay Packers in his tenure there overall. In his 13 years with the team, he took that team to 9 playoff appearances ever since they won the Super Bowl. But he fell off this year. They went 4-7-1 this year. But I'm hearing this year wasn't the main reason why they fired him. last year and carrying over to this year was the primary reason why he was fired. Last year they had a losing record. Can't think of the record off the top of my name, but they were not so hot. That was due also, I think, to Aaron Rodgers' collarbone injury.
Yes.
They had a backup quarterback. Nevertheless, you know, that shouldn't take away from the fact that McCarthy should have surrounded Rodgers and the backup quarterback with better talent. I can't even think of a receiver off the top of my head because they had no weapons.
They moved on from Jordy Nelson after he tore his ACL, and
He's on the Raiders now, I think.
He's on Oakland. Yes, he played pretty well
He
against.
did. He had like
Kansas
5
City.
receptions for 85 yards. Pretty solid.
But you know, like I said in the beginning, it's about the future. It's not about the past. And Green Bay has really fallen out of the contender circle the past 2 years. So
they have, and it just makes you think that in the NFL, it's a business. They don't care who you are. If the team is not winning, they gotta let you go. And in this case, we saw that. A legendary coach, without a doubt. I don't know if he's Hall of Fame, but he's definitely legendary. They got to let him go. 4-7-1.
Coach.
Yeah.
Exactly. Last year had a losing record. And believe it or not, get this, after their Week 7 bye, they went 1-5. So they were on like a 4-game losing streak. And they played the Cardinals and lost to a Cardinals team that was 2-9.
2-9.
They were one of the worst in the NFL.
And not only that, they gave up 20 points. And the Cardinals' offense actually averages only 14 points a game. So, you know, they gave up 20 points to a team that only averages 14, which is bottom of the barrel.
And did you hear what McCarthy said at the post game? Did you guys take notice of that? He said like a real quirky comment. He was saying how like he didn't know the game plan going into tomorrow and what he was going to do in practice. Like it just seemed as if like he just didn't care and he just gave up almost. Wow. And that's the attitude they took notice of. And I feel like that was a factor in them just firing him right away as opposed to firing him at the end of the season or at the end of a playoff run if they possibly could have made it. But I don't think they could have made the playoffs. They're 4-7-1.
Well, Josh, I mean, we don't know what's going on in that locker room. We don't know what he was told before or after the game, before he went on the podium.
They didn't mesh this season at all.
I don't.
There was something
going
on.
But I'm sure. I know that when he was fired, he said he was not expecting it, and who could blame him? You know, like I said,
Mike McCarthy.
A street named after you outside of Lambeau Field.
No. Just one step away from a statue.
So, but best of luck to Mike.
Best of luck to Mike as well. All right, guys, we're at the end of the segment, and you guys know what that means. Buzzer beater. You guys ready?
Yep.
Laik, take it away with your storyline.
All right, so my first storyline for the buzzer beater was William Nylander. William Nylander signed his extension minutes before the deadline this Saturday.
Really?
6 years, $41.77 million, $6.9 million a year to stay with Toronto in the NHL.
My goodness, how much is he making again?
$6.9 million a year, $41.77 million over 6 years.
Wow. Talk about a lot. And Nylander, could you give us some like background info on that guy? What was he like last year?
Last year, he had a great year with Austin Matthews, and in his 185 games with Toronto since he was drafted, he has 48 goals and he has 87 assists in 185 games, like I said. He was the number 8 overall pick in 2014.
Really?
And he was a real big part of that Toronto team. And everybody knows in the NHL, Toronto is loaded with offensive firepower.
Yeah.
And the fact that he wasn't on the team wasn't really hurting them that much because they went out and got John Tavares to bolster their center lines. And, well, him coming back just makes the Leafs that much better.
It does. And let me piggyback off of what you said. I got 2 words here, fellas. I got 2 words. I got bravo and excellent. Now, I'm going to tell you guys why. Nylander, he has 48 goals, 87 assists in 185 games for the Leafs. That's pretty solid. And he was drafted 8 overall in 2014. So with that being said, he's still relatively, new to the team, but I think signing him gives the Leafs more hope in reaching further. What's their record? They have a winning record, of course, right?
They're pretty up there in the Atlantic.
They are. They're pretty up there in the Atlantic. But like I said,
I think second place.
Second place?
Behind Tampa Bay.
Behind Tampa Bay. And Tampa Bay is real good.
Yeah, always.
Real good. I'm reading here, the players found out about the news before the game when coach Mike Babcock emerged from his office to tell them Nylander had signed. Forward Mitch Marner said the players in the locker room immediately grabbed their phones upon hearing the news. So just by reading that, players are probably excited. This is a good guy to have in the locker room, and reading that.
Well, Nylander was almost like Le'Veon Bell of the NFL.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He held out. He refused to play for them to start the season because he wanted a deal.
He wanted his money.
He wanted to be paid. And a lot of people did not think he was going to stay with Toronto, myself included. I thought he was not going to sign. I thought that was going to be a problem. And the fact that he signed on Saturday night was just
it was shocking,
a shocker to me. And to a lot of people, I'm sure. But, Toronto got it done. Toronto made it work.
They did.
And we'll have to see what happens down the stretch. Will he be a force in the playoffs? I'm sure he will.
Speaking of Le'Veon Bell, that guy's not getting his money, as you guys know. Who knows what's going to happen to that guy? Nevertheless, here's my storyline. The Chicago Bulls have fired head coach Fred Hoiberg after a 5-19 start to the season. Associate head coach Jim Boylan, who I have no clue is, has been promoted to head coach. Hoiberg was named the head coach in Chicago in 2015, but after spending 5 seasons as head coach, he hasn't had any success. His 155 losses are the 5th most by a coach in Bulls franchise history. I don't want to bash this guy and say he was horrible, but guys, let's face it, this guy was not good at all. He was not the coach for the Bulls in elevating them and, restructuring this team.
The word I use, Josh, predictable.
Predictable, definitely.
When you're 5-19, something needs to change.
And last year, they had a losing record. I'm not reading here what 49 and 190 in 3+ seasons with the Bulls.
49 and 190.
He was never above 500 in each of his 3 seasons with the Bulls. It is sad. It really is sad. And this guy was bound to get fired. Me personally, I'm an NBA fan and I know much about this team. I thought they were going to fire him his first year in. He had a horrible record. He was under 500. I thought he was done first year. But they kept this guy for not 2 years, but 3 years. 3 years. And as I just read you guys the record, 49 and 190, that's like insane. He's got to go. Allie, what you think?
That's why I wrote what, because I feel like this should have happened.
Should have happened.
Ago. I mean, now it's good, it's over with, but at the same time, it was just, should have been done.
Derrick Rose, Jimmy Butler, Pau Gasol, Nikola Mirotic, these are all star players that had departed from the Bulls in trying to find the right formula, away from this guy. So in reading that tells me a lot as well. His system was not working for any of them. I'm not saying these players, are washed up. As you guys know, D Rose, he's getting old, but
a lot of injuries.
Yeah, but Jimmy Butler, he's a star player. Pau Gasol, if these guys are leaving,
Gasol's good.
That tells us something. This guy, he was not the correct coach for that system at all. Now, the interim coach, Boylan, he's a veteran, so we'll see how he'll fit in. This is going to be his first time as an NBA coach, though. So we don't know, expectation-wise what he's going to do. So this is going to be interesting.
He's a placeholder.
He's a placeholder, interim coach. All right, guys, any more storylines? Is that it?
I got mine.
Got yours? Yeah. Let's hear it.
Another hockey topic. Tom Wilson of the Washington Capitals had a hit on a Devils player. Was pretty bad. I don't remember
Was
it
it to
exactly.
the head?
I don't remember exactly,
It was a rough check.
Yeah. And Tom Wilson, he's not an awful player, but he's known for
dirty hits.
Known for being an enforcer. He's a big guy, does a lot of hits. He actually started the season. He missed, I think, 16 games because of a suspension of a blindside hit. But then they cut it.
It says here they ejected him.
Yeah, they ejected him from the game, match penalty. But it was released that they're not gonna suspend him or anything. He's not getting any kind of punishment for it.
What I used was reputation. It's his reputation. Tom Wilson has had these problems beforehand, and it's just the way of the type of player he is. He hits hard, he's physical, and sometimes in the middle of a hockey game, when your adrenaline's rushing and you're in the heat of the moment, you're going to make some questionable hits. Do I feel like the man tries to hurt people? No. But it's just the way his style of playing goes, and it's just the way he plays the game.
Yeah, and piggyback off your word, I'm going to choose consistent. I'm reading here, he did, have other situations in which he was ejected from games from hitting below the neckline and above the neckline. So he's had headshots. But I say consistent. 9 games after returning from a lengthy suspension, this happens. So it tells me a lot. I don't know too much about Tom Wilson. What's he like on this roster?
He's not, like I say, he's not an awful player. He has a few goals, not a lot, a few assists probably.
He's not a scoring forward. He's an enforcer.
Yeah.
And which in the NHL is dying.
Really?
The role of the enforcer used to be a pivotal part of any team, especially in the past years. You needed your one big guy to be able to go and be physical and energize your team. But now that the NHL, is moving towards a faster, more less physical league based on speed and puck handling and scoring goals, then this role is really becoming obsolete.
He is.
But he's just a very unique player, and he was a big part of their run to the Cup last year. I think anybody would be foolish to say that the Capitals would have won the Cup if they did not have Tom Wilson.
Really?
He was a huge part of that playoff team.
Unbelievable. Wilson has been a frequent target of the NHL Department of Player Safety. Like I just said, I have some stats here. He was suspended 4 times since September 2017. So talk about having a reputation for being suspended. His last suspension for a hit to the head of St. Louis Blues forward Oscar Sundqvist in a preseason game on September 30th.
I do remember that.
Yeah.
He earned a 20-game suspension from the NHL, but it was reduced to 14 games.
Because he appealed it.
He appealed it. The NHLPA appealed to a neutral arbitrator, although the Capitals forward had already served 16 games. But you guys said he is a role player, so it's kind of interesting. If this happens moving forward, he could be a detriment to the team almost.
He definitely would cast a reputation on himself. But if you look at teams look at the Boston Bruins and Brad Marchand, he's another one that's very physical and is known for his questionable hits. But
I like how you said questionable.
He's liked by a lot of people, and he's a physical player.
Definitely.
Even sometimes Crosby too.
Crosby too.
He has had
I've seen Crosby.
Questionable hits and stuff like that in the past, and he's one of the best players.
He's one
in
of the
league
greatest forwards in the NHL.
Yes.
And very well known too. Everybody watched him, likes him, and he's had some questionable hits like that in the past.
It's just a style of playing.
It is what it is. It's hockey. You can't avoid that.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, guys, that's a wrap for the day. I'm Josh Lynch, Laik, Allie. We'll catch you guys next week.